Other interesting political news, you have Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares. We're going to break down his compensation package, talk about the company performance, compare that to the UAW, and then let me know in the comments, do you think he's overpaid, underpaid? And then what would you change about the breakdown of his package? Now, it is a little bit difficult in terms of the backstory, or rather the past fiscal years of his compensation package, because he became CEO in 2021. Where you have Jim Farley, he was CEO for the past 3 or 4 years, and Mary Barra, who's CEO of Ford. They have Mary Barra, who's the CEO of General Motors, who's been the CEO for multiple years. So they're all publicly traded. We have those numbers. Now, Stellantis, it's a newer company. And when I say newer company, it is more of a holding company. Now, in terms of the portfolio of Stellantis, he became CEO when they formed the company in 2021. He's actually founded January 16th, 2021, via a merger between Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, which is also known as FCA Group, as well as Group PSA, which gets an F for marketing because no one knows what that means. And it is not, in fact, a public service announcement. I did a fact check on that. I thought it might be that type of Group PSA. Obviously, pun moderately intended. Now, in terms of all the brands that Stellantis currently owns and is in charge of, that includes such businesses as Abarth, Alfa Romeo, Chrysler, Citroën, Dodge, DS, Fiat, Fiat Professional, Jeep, Lancia, Maserati, Mopar, Opel, Peugeot, Ram, and Vauxhall. That is quite a big portfolio, which also contributes to being a very large automotive company. They have a lot of brands that they're continuing to work with and, truth be told, manufacture. And it is quite disappointing how few of these vehicles actually come with a stick shift, as every vehicle should by default, just because that's the most pure experience and most fun you can have driving any automotive vehicle. But that's just me. Now, in terms of, again, we have his most recent compensation package. That looked like it was specifically $25.6 million. Now, granted, when you break that down, it looks like it is 91% variable, and it looks like $12.8 million in long-term incentives. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of people, many people, in fact, will complain CEOs are paid too little or too much. And I always have the same response. If you want to be involved in the company and have your opinion be valued, you can actually buy stock and you vote. So you can vote yay or nay. If you think they're, in fact, overpaid, toss your ballot. Now, in this case, people did. Now, specifically, Stellantis changed its remuneration policy and disclosure practices following the shareholders' rejection of the executive compensation report for 2021. The rejection was caused by the merger of Fiat Chrysler Automobiles, Group PSA, resulting in Stellantis, the trade unions, and politicians criticizing Tavares' high compensation. The rejection had prompted a shift in the company's strategy, with Stellantis now emphasizing a performance-based rewards for exceeding ambitious goals. As a result, the company reported a 13% decrease in CEO compensation from 2021 to, again, this is in euros, 14.9 million euros, which, and again, the exchange rate variables a lot, but it looks like as the time of the report from Reuters, it was 16.5 million US dollars, reflecting the company's new approach, unquote. Now, interestingly enough, there's a prime example. There are some pejorative comments, which, again, if it's constructive feedback, I appreciate it always. And there are a lot of people who are complaining, saying it's too expensive or really getting paid too much. And some of them, I mean, it doesn't cost a lot of money to buy these stocks in terms of you can buy a couple shares. But it's one of those things where shareholders rejected it and they wanted this person to be more compensation based in terms of want to be more incentive based. So smaller base salary, much more variable. So if they hit certain business goals, they're going to get a lot more money. And let me know in the comments, do you think that is the most appropriate or most preferred compensation package for a CEO of a company? It seems to be a very common practice where, just like with GM as well as Ford, their base salary, again, their compensation packages are between $20 and $30 million total, but the base salary are usually between, I want to say so Jim Farley's 1.7 million base salary and Mary Barra's was 2.1 million base. A majority of the compensation was stock as well as incentive based. So let me know in the comments if you think that's the most efficient incentive package for an executive, and what would you prefer? Now, in terms of the breakdown per employee, is how much money people get if he were to go just want to give away all his money, as some people in the comments say they should. Now, according to Reuters, let's see here. That was a typo. Yeah, because Ford has much more. Ford actually has the highest number of UAW members. They have 51,000 United Auto Worker members working for Ford. Now, Stellantis has 43,000 UAW members, but their total employees are 272,367. Which, dear God, that's a lot of employees. And interestingly enough, based on the number of brands they're managing and the number of employees they're managing, I'm actually surprised he's not getting paid more. Because if you look at General Motors, they have 4 brands that they currently contribute to. They have good old Chevrolet, that good old French race car driver. They've got Buick, they got GMC, and Cadillac. So that's 4 brands. Then you have Ford. Ford has Ford and Lincoln, which, back in the good old days, they actually did have some, luxury in terms of, they had Aston Martin, Range Rover, but nevertheless, they got 2 brands. And they do have they have the divisions of Ford, which they have Ford Blue, Ford EV, then Ford Commercial. But Stellantis has more car companies than a dictionary. So I'm actually surprised his compensation isn't higher. But nevertheless, let's take his most recent total compensation package of $25,600,000 divided by the 43,000 UAW members. That gives $595.35, which is a little more than a case of ammo for 223. So not too bad, but still long term. Now, if you wanted to divide that by the total number of employees, so that's $25,600,000, that divided by the 272,367 total Stellantis employees, well, each employee would get $94 more in their pocket, which is, I guess, a tank of gas, which, almost as if it's apples to oranges. It doesn't matter. Yeah, exactly, because it is apples to oranges. Again, because if you were to increase, the UAW wants to increase it by 40% in terms of their benefits to their wages, well, and then all the other incentives. Well, I guess now they've negotiated down to 36, which again, the debate on will it bankrupt the company is out. In this case, it would. Now, I say that because the UAW wants between, again, there's a 30-party reports. Their original offer or ask was between $80 billion and $100 billion. A lot. That's quite a big chunk of change. Now, that is, to be clear, over the course of the 4-year contract. But if you were to increase this CEO's compensation package, again, he's getting $25 million. What if you increased it by 40%? What is that on the good old calculator here? So you got $25,600,000. Let's times that by 40%. $35 million times 4 years. So the cost impact would be $143 million, $360,000 if they were to increase the CEO compensation package by 40% and have that over the course of a 4-year contract. Now, I'll do a little math. In fact, again, I'm no math wizard, but I do know one number is bigger than the other. $143,360,000. That is much smaller than $80 to $100 billion, which is why I always think it's silly to have these apples to oranges comparisons between an executive getting a 40% raise and the workers getting a 4% raise. And trying to keep things apples to apples, I'm talking about total compensation packages, which include healthcare benefits, stock, because that's what the UAW package is with the negotiation. They want a 40% wage, but the total package that they want, so perhaps it actually isn't equal, because the UAW wants a 40% wage increase, now only 36, but the total package that they want in terms of retiree benefits, healthcare, working 32 hours a week but getting paid 40, all those things are costing $80 to $100 billion. Now, this would quite literally bankrupt the company in this specific case as well, because if you look at 2022, the net profit for Stellantis was $17.9 billion. And even at the most conservative estimates for the UAW ask, again, that was $80 billion, and that was over the course of a 4-year contract, they would quite literally go bankrupt. Now, interestingly enough, you look at the president of UAW, Shawn Fain, who spells his name Sean with an H, which is ridiculous in and of itself. That's not even a real name. It's almost as ridiculous as a name like a name after a food, like topping. Oh, wait. Damn. Kidding, obviously. But nevertheless, Shawn Fain, as an administrative assistant, got paid $160,130 when he was an administrative assistant for the UAW last year. And now he was voted in to become president. The last president, Mr. Raymond Curry, earned $267,126, which is quite a big chunk of change for a divorce attorney. I mean, leader of the UAW. Now, in terms of having an accurate representation of should a CEO get paid more or less, I think a better way to look at it would be the profits as well as the stock. Stock is one of the best parameters when it comes to judging a publicly traded company. Now, Stellantis stock is a little bit kind of squirrely because, again, it's a company of a company of a company. There is a stock and it's been traded throughout the years, but there's so many things added to it. But nevertheless, we do have some stock history for that. Now, in terms of their stock, the Stellantis, the 5-year outlook of the trend is actually up 9.88%. So for an automotive company, that's pretty darn good comparing to the big three of GM and Ford, which actually GM came in about 3%, and Ford was up about 33%. So quite a lot of variables. Needless to say, Stellantis appears to be in second place. Although I would say they still lose because they don't make the Dodge Viper anymore. And how could you really be a winner without making the Dodge Viper? But nevertheless, their 5-year stock trend up 9.88%. And again, it's fluctuating on a second basis for the stock market, but their latest price coming in this week around $19.24 per share, which is not too shabby in and of itself. Now, unfortunately, which is kind of disappointing, they don't pay dividends. Which, if you're an investor, there are many arguments in regard to are dividends better for the company, or worse for the company? Is it good to reward shareholders who are actually purchasing your stock? Or is it taking away from money that could be put into research and development? It's a whole debate in and of itself, another topic for another time perhaps, but it is something that differentiates it from the other two of the big three, with both Ford as well as General Motors both paying dividends to the people who invest in their businesses. So, interesting enough, my 3 cents, and again, it should be 4 cents, but I'm a generous man, but 3 cents it is. Should be 2 cents, it was back in the day. But nevertheless, my 3 cents here, though it's still free to click that subscribe button and try to get to 4,000 by the end of September. Ambitious, I know, but nevertheless, as a wise pilot once said, never tell me the odds. Never tell me the odds. Some might say. Now, in terms of managing so many brands and having stock performance that's relatively positive, it's certainly better than the General Motors, I would actually argue I'd say at the end of the day, I would say he's underpaid in terms of his total compensation package. But the most important thing, nevertheless, is what the shareholders decided. They said he's paid too much, so they changed it so he has lesser base salary but more incentive package. And it's cliche to say the customer is always right. In this case, perhaps a more appropriate response or saying or metaphor would be the shareholder is always right. Now, that being said, I'm still interested to hear what do you have to say, especially if you either work for Stellantis corporate or you're a UAW member who works on one of the assembly lines at Stellantis plant. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Do you think the CEO, do you think Carlos is overpaid or underpaid? And then, do you think they should change his compensation package again? Do you think they did the right thing having it more incentive driven and less a base salary? Now, being a small business owner, I'm all about the upside. Lord knows I actually lost money when I first started the companies. And base salaries, I always say, risk it all. If you believe in yourself, you'll always go for the larger incentive and less security, less base. That's just my 3 cents. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in today. Also, don't forget to take the time to subscribe. I know it's ambitious, but trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Also giving away a free flamethrower with every IT purchase in September. Go to toppingtechnologies.com to learn a little bit more about the rules and details. Also, don't forget to take the time to ask your friends and really just let them know about the show, get their feedback as well. What I'm trying to say is don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe, fight the good fight.